Hey, what's up, you guys? So today we have to talk about the slightly worrying state of structure decks in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. And no, not because I think that they've been bad, in fact, quite the opposite, but because we haven't gotten any information or announcements about a new structure deck in months. We haven't gotten anything in 2024, and that's a really big concern to me. So, you guys might remember that in 2023, we left off with the Fire King structure deck, and this was a really good one. Honestly, I think they hit it out of the park with this. It reinvigorates the Fire King strategy. You get things like Ponix and Sanctuary and stuff, and it just totally modernizes the deck. It actually ended up being really powerful in the tournament scene. I mean, this still shows up in the top cuts of YCS events, which is great. And there are good reprints in here. You get Imperm, you get Droll. It's all in all a really great product. And it wasn't the only one. We also got things like this. The Crimson King structure deck, which is a really neat anime theme, and it's also good because it's not just another Yugi and Kaiba anime thing. It's actually Jack from 5Ds, so it just feels a little bit more fresh and different. A lot of people like Red Dragon. It's actually one of my favorite archetypes. And all in all, this is just a good deck. It had some good reprints in it, and some of the cards are also useful in other strategies. So even if you don't want to like play a pure Red Dragon deck, things like Vision Resonator and Crimson Gaia have found their way into other decks. All in all, another win. And probably the biggest win overall, actually, I would say, was the Trap Trick structure deck from the beginning of the year, because this was a really good deck for like budget players. It was super accessible. It moves at a pretty nice, like controlled pace. And I remember people like Pack were actually doing like the $30 kind of triple Trap Trick structure deck thing and going and winning tournaments with it. And it was a great, inspirational time. And that's three different structure decks that we got in 2023. Also, all the structure decks from 2022 were very good. I think Dark World, Crystal Beast, and especially Alabaz Strike were all pretty big wins for just different reasons. And so, what's the problem then with like structure decks? Why haven't we gotten an announcement of a new one? Well, I don't know the exact answer to that. I don't work at Konami, but I did think that we would maybe just get the natural progression of the Fire King deck, which would be like a Water Atlantean deck, for instance, because Atlanteans did get a structure deck around the same time, and even within the lore, the Atlanteans and the Fire Kings are kind of at war, and it's like a whole thing. I think thematically it'd be a really cool way to continue the year of 2024, where it's like we've kind of had the year of fire, but maybe it kind of ends up being more of like a year of water or a tug of war, push and pull between the two. I think that'd be a great, easy next step. But there are also other really cool things they could do next. I mean, there's loads of anime characters that people want revisited. There are loads of different archetypes that people just want more support for. I remember actually a while back, Konami did that poll in the OCG about what sort of archetypes players would want to see structure decks made for, and they actually eventually ended up basically just supporting all the different archetypes in there. Like Charmers and Ice Barriers got structure decks, but even the structure decks that we didn't get imported in the TCG, like Dragoonities and stuff, still all came over in some pack at some point, and I thought that was really, really cool. So I've thought of a few things that maybe they could do moving forward with structure decks if they don't want to continue in the same way that they have. Not saying that that's even like the reason we haven't gotten any. I have no clue what structure deck sales look like, which ones are selling, what's like sitting on the shelves, if that has anything to do with it. It probably does. But you know, maybe the next thing, if they don't want to just do the water idea, could perhaps be the tactical tryout decks. This is something that you guys have probably heard about, but in the OCG, they're making three structure decks that are designed to be played out of the box fairly competitively. It's a Cyber Dragon, Evil Twins, and Eldritch deck. And there's even a rumor that apparently they're going to be like playable as loner decks on Master Duel as well. So it's sort of meant to be like these products that are ready to play out the box, and you can sort of use them as transitory products between Master Duel and the physical card game. So it's like, oh, I got in the card game with my Evil Twin Tactical Tri deck that I bought in real life, and now I can play it in Master Duel, or vice versa. And so like it's a really cool thing. I think it addresses that one shareholder concern we heard from Konami last year, where one of the shareholders was like, oh, people they start playing Master Duel and like they can't figure out how to transition to the TCG or well, in their it's the original card game, the OCG, and like vice versa and stuff. So it seems like it's certainly addressing that. And if you take a look at the deck lists in all of those, they're really good. They include, real fully fleshed out engines, hand traps, good staples. You get like, Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplets, Ash and Maxi are in there, which I guess that wouldn't be in the TCG, but you get the idea. These are really well built decks. So Konami could import those over to the TCG as well. Will they? I'm not really sure, and I think that the reason kind of lies in the fact that like these are they don't have any new cards, so that might be a bit of a tough sell for people. Typically, I think people like their structure decks to have new support for a fan favorite archetype or a fan favorite character. So if you're just kind of rebuying a Cyber Dragon deck or something, well, I don't know if people would even really get it. Like, if you are a Cyber Dragon player, you probably already have that deck built. And if you're new and you want to play Cyber Dragons, then like you can sell it to that person, but I'm not sure how broadly appealing it would be. There's also kind of the issue of like maybe releasing three structure decks at one time could feel a bit much. Like maybe one wouldn't sell as well as the others, and then it feels like it's a flop. And who knows? That could have something to do with it. I do think it'd be cool to return to the idea though of doing structure decks at least in pairs. I think that having structure decks in pairs works really well for a lot of reasons. You can have some sort of fun thematic synergies going on, right? Like if we did have a an Atlantean deck to kind of pair off against the Fire King deck, you could actually make a product that like stitches the two of them together, and for $20 you get both, and that's really cool. And it's like you and your friend, fire versus water, you can both get in the game with one thing. Also, that reminds me, I know someone's going to bring up the two-player starter deck that like released earlier this year. That product does not count. I know it had a decent Zeus reprint, but that's like literally the best thing you can say about that product. I think it's kind of just the worst overall. You can watch my full video for thoughts on that. It's not good. That is not a structure deck. But I do think that doing like paired off structure decks could be a really neat thing. Um, Something that the OCG did was they have these, or not the OCG, this is actually the Asian English Blue Eyes and Dark Magician decks. We've done a video with these. These are cool. These are slightly more updated, modernized Dark Magician and Blue Eyes decks where they actually have some of their new cards in them. And I think that these were really cool. It's, obviously Dark Magician and Blue Eyes. Again, I know not everybody loves that, but this could be done with plenty of different monsters, themes, archetypes. In fact, the earliest structure decks in Yu-Gi-Oh, because trust me, I've played with like all of them in videos now, they did them in pairs. I remember when the zombie and dragon decks first came out, and that was like a pair. There was of course, the fire and water one that was like Infernal Flame Emperor and the sea dragon monster Leviathan or whatever. They had like the wind and earth one. They even had like a dinosaur and a machine one. And so I thought that those were all just really cool concepts, and releasing them two at a time, and that you kind of gave players a choice, and it just sort of felt like a versus thing you could do with a friend. So returning to that would be really neat. I think that they could revisit those exact themes if they honestly wanted to. And that'd be cool. And then, of course, we all know there's a billion different anime characters that everybody would love to see get a structure deck. You could go for like Joey Wheeler and Mai. You could go for characters from like even Zexal. Like Zexal is when they stopped really doing a lot of character themed structure decks. Like they technically did a few more afterwards, but like Zexal never got any. So maybe like a Kite and Yuma and Shark kind of triple structure deck thing. Like there's something there. I don't know. There's so many ideas that I have, and it makes me wonder like why hasn't Konami, said any more about it? I worry if maybe the game has gotten to a point where things are so niche, right? Like you're either in Yu-Gi-Oh or you're out, and so maybe structure decks just aren't selling in that way, and that could have something to do with it. It's also tricky now because I think that a lot of the appeal of structures where like they give you a good set of reprints, like oh Ash and Imperm and Evenly and stuff are in here, that's sort of been counteracted by the rarity collections, because rarity collection 1 obviously had like a bunch of these reprinted staple cards in it, and rarity collection 2 is looking to basically sort of do the same thing. So now I don't know that you really need to put in a pot of prosperity and a triple tactics thrust to sell a structure. I mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt, but like maybe Konami sort of feels like that priority has shifted somewhat. And I don't know. It's interesting sort of food for thought. One other thing, since I'm just here and thinking about it, is actually that I think it would be really cool to have a sort of structure deck only format for Yu-Gi-Oh. I know that that's probably difficult, and it's not like super high on the totem pole right now. I get that like people obviously are just happy that Konami's even supporting Edison to some degree nowadays. But a lot of these structure decks, I have played many of them in videos, and they actually pair up really well against each other in terms of like game balance, even as far back as like 2022, 2021. If you were to do like a 3x structure deck tournament, this works really well. I get that it can be kind of hard to like enforce, and technically I guess it would mean that the entry price would have to be $30 to buy three structures, and that's maybe a bit of a turn off. Or maybe one structure, or maybe you could trust players to just bring the exact copy of the structure deck themselves, but who knows how that would go. And in an era where we're already potentially like losing Yu-Gi-Oh speed duels, I just don't know. Maybe this is another one of these kind of costs of doing business. It's another thing that's going to get chopped off. That's not obviously me trying to be too doomer about it. I love structure decks. I think they've done a great job with all the ones they've done recently. So I would love to see more of them, and I hope that isn't the case. But who knows? It's Konami. There's just no telling. Either way, though, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. How do you feel about the structure deck situation? Do you feel like it's fine? Konami's got it all handled. We'll get an announcement here in the next few weeks, and all will be well. Or are you maybe a little bit worried or concerned? And do you think that structure decks like still have the same place in modern Yu-Gi-Oh that they maybe had 5 or 10 years ago? Like maybe Konami's just like, we can axe this stuff. Do you want to see the tactical tri decks? There's so many things. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on it on structure decks. I have liked everything that they've done, and I want to see it continue. For me personally, I'd be totally happy with an Atlantean deck. I loved playing Mermails back in the day. That'd be fine. But what would you want to see as the next structure deck? Okay, I've gone on long enough. I will see you guys in the next one. Pass turn.